Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very special session. This is a launch of a new book by the Too Big to Ignore partnership. It's called Blue Justice, with a subtitle, which you would later see. What I am doing today is we have invited all the 4 editors. The lead editor is Professor Sven Jentoft, and I am the second editor. My name is Ratana Chinpapdi, and we have Alicia Bujaya Said, and then Professor Moniba Isaac as part of this editorial team. So the Too Big to Ignore partnership, TBTI, as it is known, is a global research network, and we have been doing research in small-scale fisheries, many topics and issues related to small-scale fisheries. We have been doing the work that help enhance the understanding and the knowledge about small-scale fisheries. But now we are at a point where we need to put the emphasis on justice, and there's a reason for that. So this session is going to be about, not in addition to introducing the book, we're going to talk a little bit about why we want to pay attention to this, and then how is it related to what is happening around the world today in the context of small-scale fisheries, with the blue economy that is happening, for instance. And then we will show you the book and talk a little bit more about what the book contains. So welcome everyone to this session. So I just thought that in order to introduce the book to the world, this is like, I've been calling this a soft launch, right? Because the book itself is not going to be ready, or nobody's going to see it until early next year. So this is really a preview of the book. But I would start from maybe asking Muniba, why blue justice, and I'm hoping that you will also give us a background a little bit about how it began, this whole concept. Muniba.
Thank you, Ratana. Yes, we don't have a lot of time, but I want to say that for me, blue justice is started with placing social justice and economic justice at the center of the debates around fisheries, small-scale fisheries, access to resources, in terms of food and in terms of livelihoods. And these are all our struggles that we had. And we also see that blue justice also, in terms of the book, provide evidence of conflict, but also of how small-scale fisheries had been criminalized, and criminalizing their livelihoods through implementing marine protected areas, through marine spatial planning, through hotel development in many coastal areas, and also what I call elite and adventure tourism. So for me, the concept of blue justice is framing a counter narrative to the blue economy, but also to how we practice marine conservation and also fisheries management. And for me, this is bringing together how we perceived blue justice through the lenses of small-scale fisheries.
That's great. So I still remember in 2018 at the World Small Scale Fisheries Congress in Chiang Mai, when you presented the concept to us for the first time. It was so refreshing, and everyone was rallied, behind the idea. I remember that at the end of that session, everyone was really going blue justice, blue justice. So TBTI has picked up on that, and we had another session at the Mara conference to trying to unpack it even more, at least to understand what it means. We actually went into developing this Wikipedia entry, and we have on TBTI website a very big section on blue justice stories. We are producing ebook, collecting the stories and experiences. So this Springer publication in a Mara publication series is actually the culmination of a lot of that. So I think the attention on blue justice is really very important, especially as we are talking about sustainable development goals, as we're talking about blue economy. So maybe Alicia would like to just contextualize it a little bit for us, as we are now into this ocean decade and having all these other conversations happening about us. How important is it to talk about blue justice?
I think this book is a new wave on the discussion of how small-scale fisheries need to be better recognized. I believe that in parallel or after the books that were published through TBTI, this book will give another bigger and louder voice to small-scale fisheries. Because as we have seen, different policies around the world are constantly leading to the marginalization and the exclusion of small-scale fisheries. On the other hand, however, governments have to commit to the Sustainable Development Goals, including which is the protection of small-scale fisheries. So now, through this book, we are also providing solutions to governments on how to better implement equitability-based quota management schemes, on how to include marine spatial planning to actually recognize the needs of small-scale fisheries and different coastal management planning. It's also speaking about the need for more conversation about conservation. Sometimes the conservation is only the realm of scientists and ecologists without recognizing the need of small-scale fisheries. So there needs to be more conversation on that. And reaching the balance between the economic growth, the social needs of coastal communities, and the environmental concept is what Blue Justice provides here, because it intertwines a transdisciplinary perspective. And I believe that it is a very timely book, also given the context that next year it is the International Year for Artisanal Fisheries. So I think we are launching this book in its proper time, and I believe that it will create a new wave for small-scale fisheries for the future to come. I would like to congratulate all the authors who were part of this, and to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be one of the editors of this book.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. You're right. And I think Sven can tell us a little more about the authors in terms of at least the number, because there's quite a few. But the way you were talking about this, as it seems that blue justice is actually an inclusive lens that we need to bring into thinking about the ocean development or sustainability of the ocean, which is important, because a lot of time you could end up in a situation where people feel that small scale fisheries are not part of this conversation because they're not contributing to the blue economy, for instance. So it is really nice to see that it be able to send right message, and there is a solution. So small scale fisheries are therefore the solution to these problems that we have with the fisheries and ocean sustainability, as opposed to a problem, right? So maybe now we should really go to see the book, because again, nobody has seen even the cover of it yet. And so Sven, would you like to introduce the book to us, please?
Yeah, let me just say that you referred to the big conference in 2018, where we first started to talk about blue justice, and the concept was introduced. That was also in the context of the International Year of small scale fisheries, or artisanal fisheries, and aquaculture, which is next year. And we discussed, what are the issues that we need to discuss during that year, and what is the language we need to use in order to highlight the issues that small scale fisheries are facing. And in that context, blue justice came up as something we really want to talk about, and we need that concept. And that was the whole inspiration for this book. And the book is going to look like this. Okay. You can see all of us there. And the title is Blue Justice, Small Scale Fisheries in a Sustainable Ocean economy. It is a book that that has 35 chapters, so it's going to be another big TBTI book. And it's also a book that has chapters and authors from all over the world, all continents, 31 chapters and about 100 authors. So just to organize the process of producing such a big book with such a global participation has been a challenge, but we are very proud to have succeeded. This is what is on the back side. This is the back cover text, and it explains a little bit why we what this book is going to, what is it about, and why, what we are basically arguing in this book. Blue justice must, of course, be seen in the context of the blue economy, as Muniba, for instance, just said. We are now in the position that we can talk about small-scale fisheries in the context of blue economy, also because we have the voluntary guidelines for small-scale fisheries, which FAO member states endorsed in 2014. Not only does the voluntary guidelines raise a number of issues that are related to social justice, it also points to a number of things that needs to be done in order to secure justice. What we argue here is that it is very important to link those two discussions. Blue economy must embrace the issues that are raised in the voluntary guidelines, and if the blue justice discourse and implementation does not do that, there is a risk that the blue economy will come at a loss to small-scale fisheries, and that must not happen. This is sort of the basic argument. In other words, we want these two discourses on the blue economy and the small-scale fisheries guidelines to be linked, and we think that the concept of blue justice is a way to actually link those two. Justice is, of course, a concept that has been with us for a long time. There's a vast literature on social justice within philosophy, within law, within the social sciences. And that provides a context for this whole book. We do want to situate and draw from that more general discourse that has been with us for decades, if not centuries, about what is social justice. What does it mean? What aspects does it have, etc. So we do have also an ambition to contribute to that discourse by contextualizing it in small-scale fisheries. It has been a concern for all our TBTI books that they should not be just a random collection of papers or chapters on small-scale fisheries, but that there should be a coherent perspective to make sure that it sort of hangs together. And for that, we need a theoretical perspective that runs through the whole project. We have in other books drawn on so-called interactive governance theory, and we do it again. For instance, this concept of the governance orders. Here we argue that justice relates to the three governance orders, the meta order, the second order, and the third order, whereas the third order is about norms and principles of justice. The second order is about institutions and the rules through which you institute and implement those principles at third order. And then we argue that we also need to look at how justice is experienced in the daily life of small-scale fisheries, people, and how it affects their lives and livelihoods in their communities and as they go about doing their work. So we need to bring these more lofty principles that are enshrined, for instance, in the small-scale fisheries guidelines, down to the level of the community where people live their lives and are experiencing what the blue economy means in practice. So all these case studies are about these experiences that people have, and they argue about the linkages between the different orders. In some instances, there is a lack of coherence between the orders. What is stated at the third order does not trickle down to the first order. The institutions are not there to actually make that possible, and therefore there is a disjunct between the different orders. And when that happens, you might expect a trickle-up process. There is social struggle going on within fisheries worldwide, where small-scale fisheries try to influence, to create better institutions, and try to influence those principles that are there to guide the actual governance mechanisms and policies that are there. So this is a topic that we invited people to address in their different chapters, in their different contexts, and we have on the right-hand side a number of questions that we wanted them to address. For instance, at the third order, which justice principles are foundational for the governance system where they are? Do they recognize or ignore the rights and needs of an interest of small-scale fisheries? At the second order, what institutional characteristics do governance systems have? Are rules supportive or discriminatory vis-a-vis small-scale fisheries? And at the first order, how do power relations affect small-scale fisheries on a daily basis? Are patterns of interactions among stakeholders supportive or discriminatory vis-a-vis small-scale fisheries? So these are questions that the different different authors, different chapters discuss, and by relating it to the particular context within which they operate, within which they have a research or a research experience. So this is sort of the overarching perspective that runs through the whole book, and you will, when you read these chapters, see how the different authors are discussing these issues and how they are relating to this overarching perspective. The book is organized around a number of statements, 11, 12 in total. The book is summarized around these statements, and the conclusions that we draw do the same. So there is a coherent organization of this book where these different statements are the organizing principles. Justice issues have deep historical roots. We know that that is the case. Justice issues stem from old and new conflicts. Justice is systemic and multidimensional. It is territorial and spatial. Justice is competitive in alternative livelihoods. It's an imminent issue for inland fisheries as well. We often forget about inland fisheries, but they are, of course, a major part of small-scale fisheries globally. Justice issues are more evident when in crisis. justice is an a priori condition for sustainable development. Sustainable development is not supposed to bring justice. Justice is an important condition for even succeeding in creating sustainable systems that also benefit small-scale fisheries. Justice is about going beyond claims, and finally, it needs a strong knowledge foundation. We of course develop arguments around all these different statements, and together they provide a holistic or integrated perspective on what blue justice involves, and how it can be achieved in the context of small-scale fisheries, now that the blue economy is spreading around the world and is affecting the situation within which small-scale fisheries exist. We know that they are already in a very marginalized position. Often they strive with poverty, the inability to have access to resources and to feed themselves and their communities. And we are, of course, concerned with the risk that the blue economy might not solve that problem, but may further enhance it. And that would, of course, be a pity, something we should be aware of, and it's certainly an issue for the International Year on the artisanal fisheries and aquaculture. And it is for that purpose, for that reason, that we have produced this book, and we will make what we can to be part of the discussion that we're going to have next year in the different conferences, etc., and the things that is going to take place next year.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you just stop sharing the screen so that I can bring everybody back on the screen again. So next year, as part of the celebration of the International Fisheries and Aquaculture, we, TBTI, of course, would also have, Sven, would you like to stop sharing your screen, please? We would also have, thank you. We would also have the 4th World Small-Scale Fisheries Congress. Usually, like I mentioned, in 2018, we met in Chiang Mai. That was our 3rd Congress. Next year, being a COVID-19, we will, instead of having it in one location, we're actually going to have it in 5 locations in the regions around the world. So we'll start from a conversation in Japan for Asia Pacific region. I am based in St. John's, so we would have the 2nd one in June in St. John's for US and Canada, basically. Then we'll go to Malta in September, where Alicia would be hosting the regional congress for Europe in September. Then another colleague of ours, Silvia Salas, would host the one in Merida for the Latin America and the Caribbean. That will be in October. And then we'll end the year in a big celebration in Cape Town with the hosting of Moniba for the African continent. So already there are many events and opportunities to continue to talk about blue justice. And at every Congress, of course, we would be having a session and at least, to talk about blue justice so that it is becoming part of that major thread through in terms of the conversation that would be required, so that it stays at the forefront rather than thinking that by having a book or by publishing papers and then we're done with it. I think we would argue for a continuing discussion and even more actions and strategies that will be needed in terms of making sure that small-scale fisheries are protected in terms of their rights and their access and etc., but also recognized for their contribution to blue economy, and can be really part of that instead of being disadvantaged or marginalized. So thank you for that overview of the book, and all those statements are really strong, and they are really something that we can continue to think about. So just to conclude this session, I thought that it would be good to maybe let all of us say a few words about why people should read the book, and or you can say that, or what you want to achieve with the book as well. So maybe we'll do it the same order. We'll start again from Muniba.
Thank you. For me, I think it was important to start in 2018 with the book, with the concept, to further develop the concept at the Mare conference, and now in the book. So now we have the concept, and we understand what we mean by the concept of blue justice. It is so important that we now need to drive the concept also in terms of the advocacy space. And there are very many justice narratives around. We're talking about spatial justice that are similar and related to blue justice in terms of marine spatial planning and also territorial. We are also talking about climate justice that is also important, and all of that rooted in social justice, I think is important, that will also strengthen the blue justice concept in making a more inclusive space for small-scale fisheries. For me, it is very important that we continue through all the issues that we raise must be through the lenses of small-scale fisheries. And I think blue justice do that because it goes beyond the management, the livelihoods, food issues. It goes at the heart of the struggles of what fishermen and fisherwomen are facing on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Muniba. Alicia.
Having gone through the book for several times, also through the editing process, you realize that this book is not only an easy read, it will help readers from any part of sciences, fishing organization, governments, policymakers to get in touch with the reality, because the case studies are easy to read and easy to relate to. So there's a problem and there's a solution in each chapter, which could help even policymakers think outside the box when they want to really find solutions for blue justice in their different countries. The book also shows the need for research and policy to continue to speak to one another and not work in separate vacuums. And I believe that, linking to what Muniba just said, now that governments have a couple of weeks ago made a lot of commitments for climate change at the COP26 in Glasgow in Scotland, I think that this book is a must read for them to really link the commitments on climate change to the needs of small-scale fisheries in their country. I think that all of this put together and the forthcoming international celebrations of the Artisanal Year makes this book an important book for everyone.
Nice, thank you. Sven.
It is, this is an academic book. It is part of what TBDI is doing on small-scale fisheries. And there are other things that TBDI does that is a more practical, applied nature than this book. But we need to discuss what justice means, what social justice means in fisheries, and we need to bring it into this this blue economy debate because justice issues, or it challenges people's perception of what is just. The problem, of course, is that it is a difficult concept, and that's why it has been discussed for ages. What is justice anyway? We often have a clearer idea of what injustice is, because when we feel it. But the more general, you could say, philosophical discussion of what is justice anyway, is and when is justice served, is pretty complex. But it's still important to have a clearer perspective on what justice, social justice, is in the context of blue economy, or in any context that relates to small scale fisheries. So for me, this is a book that contextualizes, draw from experience that people have in their communities, in their countries, with policies or systems that have a tendency to ignore them or marginalize them on the one hand, and also to discuss those experiences in the context of the more general issues about social justice. So when we talk about social justice in this book, we talk about it in a broader sense that it is often discussed. Blue justice is for some just a concept of relevance in the, with the IUU, the illegal fisheries perspective, but justice is a much broader concept than in a more legal and law enforcement perspective, and that is what we stress in this book. And I think it is important to do that now, when we are going to spend a whole year on talking about what progress would mean in small-scale fisheries. So that is our contribution, and we do think that our contribution is relevant, and that the book is part of that.
No, that's great. Thank you. So, of course, the book will be released early next year, and it's you can download it as chapter by chapter, or if universities or institutions have subscription to it, of course, it can also be, the whole book can be available. And of course, it's also in a printed version. But I think it's going to be our job to trying to make the work that we put into this book, not just our work as editors, but also the work of all the authors, really accessible to people. And that would mean continuing to present it in different ways. So we actually have invited our authors to put a 3-minute video about their chapter, and we would host that on TPTI website. And we're planning to release that first batch of that, at least, on the World Fisheries Day this year as part of the celebration. So I think, what Moniba said about the book can actually lead to advocacy. What Alicia said about the book can be used really to help policy making, and what you're saying, Svein, about the book being really part of a better understanding from an academic perspective, but also to really help us better recognize, right, that it is really connected to many other things that we do. So I think, to me, it is really important to keep thinking about these. And I always go back to the term justice, and we like to say that, right, that it's kind of inherent. People understand it, what justice means. Little kids know what justice means when they talk about it's not fair, when they're they're bullied by their brothers, for instance, right? So they are relatable in some way, but at the same time, it's so much depth to it. There's so much need to better understand and appreciate why these particular lanes can help correct some of the things that that we have been seeing, that we know that is not right, and also to prevent it from happening in the future. So I hope that by reading the book, by engaging with a conversation about the blue justice in various ways that TBTI is doing and what we are all doing in our own work, it would help really move the conversation forward and also set us in the right path when we're talking about why is it that we wanted to celebrate small-scale fisheries in next, with this International Year for Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture. It's not just a celebration alone, and it's not just for next year, but it's an ongoing work that TBTI is really committed to do, and I believe all of us in the same position, and the authors of the book are trying to do that also with their contribution to this book. So thank you everyone for sharing your thought on this. It's been quite a process. It has a really nice history to it as well, as we are developed, where we have worked and developed this. And I think we would all be very happy and proud when we have, when we really see the book. But for now, the message is out there, and let's continue with this good work, and we'll be talking with you again very soon. Thanks so much, everyone, for participating in this session.